Hello, everyone, and welcome to TMI episode 157, a TMI rewind, as we like to call it. So this means that when we are taking some time off, we are presenting an older episode and pawning it off as new. And in this case, episode 74 has gotten the rewind treatment. Prepare yourselves for our discussion of Ready or Not, which was a brand new movie on September 3rd, 2019, which is when this episode first aired. In addition to Ready or Not, we are talking about Tourist Trap, a classic horror film, one of my favorites, which I forced upon my co-hosts at the time, Jeff Chandler and Mike Evans. Now, yes, you heard me correctly. This was a time pre-Christina Henry. We've had several cast changes on this show, not as many as Saturday Night Live, but at least as many as MASH. If this is the first time you're listening to TMI, welcome. We will be back soon with new movies to cover. Enjoy.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Mike Mjolnir Evans. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
So, gentlemen, we are back.
We are back. Is this 75? Are we at 75 episodes?
No, we are one away from 75. We are at number
74.
74, as a matter of fact.
So close. I guess you'll have to tune in next week.
Our feature for our big 75th is going to be It Part 2. I really hope it lives up to it.
It better. Scary. Thank you. Damn clowns.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be as scary as the first one, if you've seen the first one, because you're not dealing with...
I have not seen the first one. I got to do some serious homework.
Yeah, we'll see. That's next week. This is this week.
What are we talking about this week, Jim?
We're talking about Ready or Not. Ready or Not, we were going to talk about that. And Tourist Trap.
Tourist Trap. Now, who recommended this? This is actually a listener request, correct?
It's a listener request, and I'll get into it once we actually get into the classic feature this week. But this is from my friend, Jen Jones, who lives in the UK, actually.
And
Is an expat. She married an Englishman, a very nice guy by the name of Chris, and she moved over there, has 3 kids, and now she is a full-up UK citizen, I believe. So,
and she listens to our show.
And she listens to our show.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Knew us well enough to request to the email. So, yeah.
Well, I will say this. This is our second listener request. Our listeners are effed up.
If you remember, our first request was Horror Express.
Yeah. What's wrong with you people?
And we've actually got a third next week, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Well, that one I jump on board. That one I agree with.
Now, we mentioned The Matrix, which prominently features Hugo Weaving.
Yes, it does.
Always intoning Mr. Anderson. And our main feature features his niece.
His niece, Samara?
Samara Weaving. She does physically, I think, resemble her uncle a little bit.
That's not nice to say.
He's a very interesting-looking man.
He is, I'll go with interesting. Yeah.
I thought she was perfectly cast.
I enjoyed her. I thought she was great. Do you know she's actually, right now, she's filming Bill and Ted Face the Music. She's one of their siblings. Not siblings, yes. one of their children. Yeah.
And now she's also picked up the mantle of new screen queen. She's on this Netflix movie called The Babysitter, which
I've heard it's actually really good. Now, is it a movie or is it a show?
I think it's a movie. And there's a show, perhaps, I think it's called Mayhem, that she's also part of.
She was also in Ash vs. Evil. That was
Ash vs. Evil Dead. Yes.
Yeah.
So she is building herself a reputation.
She's got a great scream. Thought she had a phenomenal scream.
And if she's going to be a new scream queen, then this is a worthy opening shot to that career, because I had a great time in this movie. I thought it was really fun. Silence.
I'm waiting to see what Mike said.
It started off slow for me, but then it really picks up, because you kind of know from the trailers where this thing's going to go. So you just want to get into it. You know what I mean? So the first 20 minutes or 25 minutes or so, I'm just like, let's get this game going.
Yeah, there is a lot of exposition in the front end of this. Something like this, you have to set up why they're doing it. So to give them some motivation. But that was murky all the way through. I didn't really get the gist of it. Was that whole thing about the ship and their ancestor, was that true or not? Since this guy turns out to be the devil, and how do they know this? If it wasn't explained very well, their whole backstory.
There's no, well, that was more than what you got on her character. What was her character's name? Grace. Like she had, except for the fact you found out that she was raised in foster family, that there was no backstory whatsoever. But I didn't care. The whole premise is preposterous. The execution is preposterous, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Let's give him the setup. This is Grace, played by Samara Weaving, and she's marrying into a very rich family, the Le Domas family.
Le Domas.
Le Domas. And it's kind of like they're set up as a Parker Brothers type corporation conglomerate that gets their fortune from making different board games. And they've also purchased, they say, a couple of professional sports teams along the way. So they are rich. They are loaded. And they're having the wedding. Alex is the groom, and he is the favored son in this family. And they're having the wedding at their mansion in the backyard. The bride and groom are staying overnight after the wedding. And it's revealed to the bride, she doesn't know this beforehand until after the ceremony, is that at midnight, the family always, whenever there's a new member that's marrying into the family, the tradition is they get together and they play a game because of their bread and butter. So the way that they pick the game is they have this little contraption with different cards in it that each says a different game, like checkers, chess, and anything you can think of in there.
Yeah, I got the impression that that this ghost thing that had given him the box was controlling it, and he would choose.
So a story is given by the elder Le Domas, the patriarch.
Domas.
Tony Domas.
Tony Dumas. Le Domas.
He says their great grandfather, great uncle, or whoever it was on a
steamer or something, yeah.
And he meets a character called LaBelle. There's a lot of La's in this family. La Damas, LaBelle. And they make a deal. If the great-grandfather can figure out the secret of this box during their sea voyage, then he will have riches beyond his imagination. But as part of the deal, whenever somebody new enters his family, they have to make him play a game that he has pulled from this box. Now, how they get to that, I'm not really sure.
If you're in at that level, then you go with it.
Yeah, you go with it.
Because you're basically seeing this whole thing unfold through her eyes. Because she's all happy. She's ready to get married. She loves her husband. She thinks that the family's crazy to begin with. And she just wants them to accept her.
And she's as confused as we are as to what's happening. She doesn't believe that she has to do this.
Yeah, except we saw the trailer, so we know what's going to happen.
And they're convinced that if they don't play this game, that something terrible will happen to them come dawn. The entire family will be taken down in some terrible way. They don't know exactly how, but they just know it to be true. So, and it doesn't always happen that it ends in a bloody murder. Sometimes you pull checkers, and then the new member of the family, plays an innocent game of checkers. They pull chess. And a lot of the ones that have married into the family that are there say that very thing, like, well, I pulled chess, or I pulled checkers.
I pulled Old Maid. What the hell is Old Maid?
Hide and seek is the game that they pull when the family is forced to actually sacrifice the new member and kill them. Therein lies the rub, and that's how the family will keep their riches and avoid disaster.
But obviously, Alex is not too happy that he marries his wife and now is forced to kill her.
Yeah, because of course she picks the hide and seek card.
Right.
It's the first time that it's been picked in, I think, two generations.
38 years.
Yeah, 38 years.
Because you see that at the very opening, you see that scene when Alex and Daniel are kids.
And it's their aunt that is the one who is marrying this new guy into the family, and he picked hide and seek, and it didn't end too well for him.
No, and I actually tried to look up that lady who played the aunt because she was over the top.
She was.
Yes. But I didn't recognize her name, and I didn't recognize anything else that she had been in. But she was awesome. She was completely unhinged and was more than ready to play this game.
Yeah, and her character, even though you see her distraught over the killing of her husband in the beginning of the movie. By the time you reach the current time period, she is the one with the most bloodlust, the one that's most manic over getting her hands on Grace to sacrifice her, because you think that experience 3 decades ago really cracked her. So she's not been right ever since. So Grace pulls the bad card. She pulls the hide and seek card. And for the rest of the movie, at first she still thinks it's an innocent thing because they don't tell her that they're going to kill her. She just knows she has to hide. But as events unfold, she realizes that this family is not what it seems and that she has to get out. So that is the setup of the story. It's been 3 decades. They're not
they're not seasoned killers, right? And they're all handed like these ancient weapons. And at one point, the one brother-in-law, Fitch, like you see him on YouTube looking up how to use crossbow videos. I will say that the amount of F-bombs in this thing is just over the top. But there were some serious laugh out loud moments, and it's usually at the expense of some hapless victim that just goes. It's very bloody. But it does take some nice twists and turns, and it's a fun ride. I enjoyed it.
The poor maids.
Oh, I know. I did laugh out loud numerous times. I guess you call it a dark comedy. Is it a slasher genre? Not really. I mean, she's not a helpless victim at all. She becomes, very empowered very quickly.
But did you find yourself like watching the movie through your hands at some point? I mean, literally. I mean, I'm in the movie theater by myself. And I'm like, when they get to some of these, like the dumbwaiter and the goat graveyard kind of thing, I'm like, I can't stand this.
Yeah.
No, I was like, as long as there's not mannequins turning to look at me, I'm good with this movie.
Oh, wait till we get to the next movie then. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I liked it. The
family members, each of them has their own character, and they're all set up very nicely in the little time that you've got to learn more about this family. First and foremost, not even the groom, but the brother, Daniel, who protects the groom early on in that scene Jeff was talking about. Daniel is played as an adult by Adam Brody, who we just saw in Shazam not too long ago.
Shazam.
But he's the one that's got the most conscience about this, because Alex, you find out in the end, really isn't that much different than the rest of his family. And
because he was a little estranged, and the mom, who we haven't even mentioned yet, was played by Andie MacDowell.
Totally against type, by the way. You do not expect to see her in a role like this, and smoking, no less. Innocent Andie MacDowell to get her hands bloodied in this fashion, but she does, and it looks like she's having a good time.
I think they all look like they were having some fun. Yeah. Even Samara, I mean, you got the impression that she was like, that's it, I'm in, let's do this.
Yep, from the minute she rips that bridal skirt to move a little bit more freely around the house, she's a new action heroine.
Oh, she was the coke-addled sister. Most of the comedy came from her.
Because she's the one that's killing all the maids, the addicted to love girls. That's exactly how Grace finds out that they're not kidding around, because Alex at first tries to save her by trying to get her out of the house, because this is a new bride. He doesn't want her to be shot, and he's never experienced this before, because in his lifetime, except when he was a kid, but he never saw it,
right?
This hasn't happened. So he's almost unbelieving that it's a possibility. But I want to add this, to me at least, superficially, because I haven't seen the other movie. I've only seen the trailer. Does have a lot in common with The Hunt, which has been canceled.
That's funny you mention that, because it does have the same, right, because what was it, like the upper class was hunting?
Yeah, and Adam Brody has that line at one point, the rich are different.
Right, this is kind of a social commentary on the 1%, that they're so bored out of their gourd, and they're so obsessed with who and what they are and what they represent, that, they're willing to go to this lengths to keep that status.
And yet this squeaked right under the radar, and I love that it's got basically the same message.
Right.
About it, and now it's a modest hit from what I understand.
Yeah, I guess true hardcore. I did see that there were some less than stellar reviews on IMDb where people are like, this was lame. I don't know. This is not in my wheelhouse in any way, shape, or form. This is not a movie I would have gone to see or had any interest in seeing. But sitting in the theater,
that didn't stop us.
No, it didn't. And sometimes you got to get outside your comfort zone, and maybe that's why I enjoyed it so much, because I'm not ingrained in all those others where you're like, oh, that's just like this movie, or she should have done this. To me, it's like a dark comedy. Because
that's probably why I'm sure like the true horror fans might be disappointed with this, because to make this a real true horror movie, you would have to make the family frightening.
And they're not. They're inept.
The only one that's frightening is the butler, Stevens. So whenever he's on with Grace, then it's life or death, because this butler would do anything for the family.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the Michael Myers Jason character that just keeps coming back at whatever she deals out to him.
Yeah. Although I really thought that the kid was going to be the undoing of her, because he kind of disappeared at one point, and you saw that he was a little bloodlusty. And he shoots her in the hand, and there's that horrible scene that Mike was where she falls into. So he shoots her in the hand. She makes it to the barn, and there's all the sacrificial goats. Because they are like a satanic cult type of a thing. So they got to keep goats on hand. She sees the kid and she's like, oh, Joey or whatever his name was. And he immediately pulls out the gun and shoots her. And she punches him out, but then falls backwards into this pit full of dead goat bodies. She finds the uncle from 38 years ago still in there with arrows sticking out of him. But now she's trying to climb up. She's, just covered in animal blood, and it's nasty. And that scene where, her hand literally has a hole in it. And you see that coming a mile away, which is there's a board at the top with a giant nail sticking out of it. And she's clambering her way back up to the top. And the way it's shot was pretty good, because you just knew someone was going to jump out or grab her. And she gets to that top, and she's got one good hand, and she takes her mangled hand and she sticks it right through that nail. And like you said, the scream, she should win, some MTV Scream Award, because she was all in. That was horrific.
I got the impression, because there's a line in there where on off years, when they don't pull the hide and seek card, is they sacrifice a goat.
Sacrifice a goat. Right. Okay. So I guess that does the trick.
That being as rich as they are, they could invest in a nice furnace instead of that pit in the barn where
just burn everybody.
Yeah.
You would think so. You got to cut corners somewhere.
You wouldn't have that great scene if they had a furnace. So
no, not at all. And the only other scene that made me laugh out loud, and it didn't really have anything to do with people dying, but she makes it out of the yard. She squeezes through the fence onto the road, and there's a car coming, and she's completely covered in blood. She's still in her wedding dress. She's soaked in blood. She's got a hole in her hand, and she's trying to flag down this car. And the guy stopped, and he's like, "Get out of the road, champ!" And he drives away, and she just loses her mind and starts screaming at him.
And he's got like a sports car, so you can tell he's just as rich as this family.
And she's like, "You spoiled, rotten little bastard." That was pretty funny. But yeah, the ending was a nice little surprise as well. And I don't know if we necessarily want to spoil it, but
we gotta spoil it. We always spoil it.
So you think she's gonna get away, right? Every turn, and she gets captured yet again. They have her on the sacrificial altar. They're all in robes. Sure enough, what's his name? Daniel kind of comes through, and he poisons his family so that he can help her escape. And she
just enough so they just vomit. It's not like they'll
poop weird for a week, right? But then she runs into Alex, and he immediately turns and he grabs her. She's in here. She's in here. So he was all in. He was ready to sacrifice his new bride.
But then the sun rises.
Right, because that's all has to happen before the sunrise.
For a few minutes, nothing happens to the family. So they all think that this has just been BS for so many years.
You have like this Dracula moment.
Right.
Right?
Literally like
themselves from the sun.
And then that's nothing. Not the case, though.
And then one by one, they start to explode.
Literally explode.
And I am happy that they exploded the two kids off screen.
Yeah, agreed.
I thought that would have been a little over the top, and the mom ran out of the room with the two kids, and then you just see the horrific
blood come back through the doorway. But it was funny because it's two little explosions and then a big explosion. So by the end of this, Grace is covered in their entrails. Well, Adam Brody's character, I don't know if he would have survived the explosions because he's shot by one of his own family members earlier.
Right.
And you kind of get the impression that that's part of the reason that Alex turns on her, because not only has she killed his mother with the card box,
with that box, yeah,
but he also thinks that she's killed Daniel as well. And now, speaking of this big ending, the first draft of the screenplay, Grace was supposed to die. So it was a much darker ending. It's revealed that the family have bought off the police to let them do this every once in a while. So they continue on in the first draft of the script. And I don't know how that would have played in this movie.
I wouldn't have liked that.
That it's lighthearted, and then it would have taken a very dark turn. But one of the directors said that was before the 2016 election. So,
okay.
So after the election, they thought that the movie should really take a stance against the 1%, and that it should be a cathartic ending because of what some of the country was feeling after the election. And, brings back what we were talking about last week, that, the big explosion moment of Jaws, that after all this that Grace has been through, that she deserves that ending, and so does the audience. So much like Bruce the Shark, we get a literal explosion.
And you do get a nice little, because they keep talking about this. What was the ghost named? LaBelle. And I guess Alex supposedly had seen him when he was a kid, the ghost. And at the very end, the house is on fire. Everyone's exploded. And she's kind of standing there. Like you said, she's completely covered in blood and entrails. And as the fire engulfs the room, for a split second, you see the outline of a guy sitting in a chair. And she just goes, oh shit. And that was pretty cool.
$6 million budget. As of a couple days ago, it's made $13.3 million. So it's well on its way to making a profit.
Right.
So I think it'll be a classic horror film before long.
Yeah, I'll never watch it again.
Probably not.
So I would give it, I'm thinking 3.5 buckets.
I'm going right there with you, 3.5.
3.5?
I'll go 3.
All right, it's fair. Listen, like I said, it's not in my wheelhouse. It's not a movie I was looking forward to. But yeah, if you see the trailer, you really kind of know what you're getting in for. But like I said, there's a couple nice little twists and turns that we've not ruined for you. But
so I would say a solid recommendation from TMI on Ready or Not.
Yeah, go see it. It's a matinee movie.
It is. I almost had a private screening. A couple people came in right as the credit started. So
enough with these.
Oh, you're going to get. That's what happens. These people, they come in, they give you that false sense of security. Like, I can watch a movie uninhibited by anyone else and not bothered by anyone else. Nope. Other people always ruin your good time.
How much can the human mind stand? Do you dare pit your sanity against our marathon of fright? Shock follows shock. Your breath comes in gasps, hearts fall. Then, the mind explodes. For the unlucky ones, a straitjacket and a free trip to the booby hatch. To the strong, a free Fright Club membership card. See the grisly, macabre marathon of fright and learn your fate. Will it be life or living death?
Our classic feature this week is something that I saw many times on WOR on Saturday afternoons, on the Saturday afternoon movie, put there by probably some very mean-spirited programming.
I can't imagine watching this as a kid.
I can't
Saturday afternoon. This is just so over the top.
I don't remember the first time I saw this, but I saw it at least 4 or 5 times.
And once you watch it, you can't unwatch it.
No.
It's forever seared in your brain.
And just like Beware the Blob, whenever it came on, regardless of my feelings about it, I had to watch it. It was a date with destiny. And, it's kind of like when you sit in the dentist chair and you kind of resign yourself. Okay, I'm here. Do whatever you got to do. I'm going to take it. That's kind of the same mentality that I had watching this movie. Maybe it was to face my fear, but I never conquered it because this thing always haunted me from that day that I saw it, and I've never been able to get over it. So fast forward a couple of decades, and this movie came out in 1979, and it made the TV rounds probably starting in 1980, 81, and that's when I would see it. Probably every 6 months they would run it on WOR. And again, can you just imagine somebody rubbing their hands together at the TV station? Oh, I'm going to lay something on these kids. And your parents, it's on broadcast TV. They don't think anything of you watching something that's on. Oh, it can't be that bad. It's on TV. No,
right, it's on the afternoon.
No,
yeah. This is traumatizing.
And it's not a bloody movie. It's not a gory movie by any means. But it's extremely disturbing.
It is extremely disturbing.
In the visuals alone, it is disturbing.
Yeah, even and it wastes no time. It gets right into the guts of what's going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm surprised that Mike even made it through this.
I made it to like the last 5 minutes, so someone has to.
Oh, that's right. You did say
What happened to Molly? Just someone has to. Whatever we do, someone has to.
We'll get into that. We will get into that. We'll keep Mike in suspense as what happens to Molly.
I mean, I think when one, I was shocked that Tanya Roberts was in it, so I'm like, this is a huge plus for me from the Beastmaster. And you know, once she met her demise, I sort of started to lose interest rapidly.
That was it. Yeah, she was looking damn good, brunette with the little tank top on.
Yeah, they do actually have the foresight to keep her involved until probably the last 15 minutes or so. Fast forward from the early 80s into, say, around 1999, 2000, and I used to work at Walden Books in the Poughkeepsie Galleria with a bunch of like-minded horror fans. And we would get together often after work on Friday nights at somebody's house and pull an old horror movie for the group of us to laugh over it, much like a Mystery Science Theater, kind of get up and, you know, talk back to the screen, the whole 9 yards. And we watched stuff like Beware the Blob, Gargoyles, all these old movies that you remember seeing as a kid. Legend of Boggy Creek was a big one. Snow Beast was a big one. And this one, Tourist Trap. So this awoke many a memory as we were watching it. And there wasn't a lot of call, even though there were 5 of us watching it, it was very silent. I remember when we were watching, we just traded stories about how this thing traumatized us. And so Jen was part of that Walden Books gang. And she also saw it as a kid on WOR. And when we started this podcast, I would get notes from her from time to time. When are you going to do Tourist Trap? When are you going to do Tourist Trap? And I always say, I don't know about Tourist Trap. I don't think I can, that will pass muster from the other two. So she finally sent in an official request. We could not deny it.
Oh, is that all it takes?
No, that you know, I would draw a line because I know that Tourist Trap isn't as bad as some movies can get. So we watched it, and I've introduced Mike and Jeff now to my trauma. Now, I think this is a bit more serious in terms of trauma than Beware the Blob was. That was more of like, I saw that younger than I saw this one. This haunts you, I think, as an adult. I think, as Jeff can attest to, as just from the texts that I got from him after he watched the movie.
Well, if you're going to have scary mannequins, this is the way to do it because their mouths unhinge, which just is, you know, they're stupid plastic things, but yeah.
Also, this has a pretty big pedigree because it's got a recommendation from Stephen King himself in his nonfiction work, Dance Macabre.
Braise silent.
Because in the trailer that we just played, they actually say macabre. So,
oh, do they? Oh, well.
So I was like, have I been pronouncing it wrong all these years? But even on the DVD box, they have the quote snippet from this book. And so Stephen King himself says, while Chuck Connors is miscast, and he kind of is.
He's a poor man's Jack Palance. They couldn't get Jack Palance.
That's funny because they actually went to Jack Palance.
No.
They did.
Really?
Can you imagine Jack Palance?
Yeah, no, he would be a hell of a lot scarier.
Even though he is miscast, the film wields an eerie, spooky power. Wax figures begin to move and come to life in a ruined, out-of-the-way tourist resort. There are a number of effective atmospheric shots of the dummy's blank eyes and reaching hands, and the effects are effective. So even Stephen King gave it a shout-out in this book.
I will say that especially the effects were pretty impressive.
Yeah. But again, it's not a bloody movie. So the setup is these kids who are looking for a friend of theirs who you see killed in the opening scene of this movie.
Like literally 5 minutes in, he loses his tire.
He breaks down, leaves his girlfriend at the car, and he takes the tire and he goes to find help to fix his flat tire. And he finds an abandoned gas station. So he goes in, and it looks like it's been recently abandoned because there's a bar with chips, and there's still signs up as to what everything costs. And he hears a little giggling coming from the back room. Now that in itself, I think you're out of there. First thing.
Yeah, no. I definitely would have picked up a 55-cent can of beer, though. It's a bargain.
Or, bag of chips or something.
All that and a bag of chips. Then I'm out of there.
So he goes in the back, and he sees a mannequin under a blanket. Thinks it's a real person, which anybody in their right mind would not think it's a real person. And then, of course, the door shuts on him. He's in the back room, and then mannequins start coming through the windows, come out of the closet. Everybody's laughing at him. And those mannequins, for the first time, open their mouths in an unhinged way.
That is
That's probably the spookiest visual. All the mannequins do that.
all but Kim Cattrall.
But did you notice that all the doors were locking from the inside? So like trying to like get out would only go
just
unlock the door.
But you got to think that this guy, not only does he have awesome mannequin making skills, but he also has telekinesis, apparently. So,
Which, is never really explained.
No.
You just kind of go with it.
And that was an addition from the producers of the movie. That never was in the initial drafts of the script, the telekinesis angle. So they thought that the movie needed something else, so they insisted that go in there, I think because Carrie had come out recently. So Woody gets killed by these mannequins. You never see who's controlling them, but you do hear somebody mumbling. Really, it reminded me of the Homer Simpson yummy sound whenever he eats a donut. A sling blade comes to mind as well.
Oh, some people call it a Kaiser blade. I call it a sling blade.
So Woody is dead. Flash over to his girlfriend who's waiting by the car. 3 others come. You have got Jerry, Molly, and Tanya Roberts' character, who I don't know the name of. So
I don't remember either.
They pick up Elaine, who's sitting by the car, and they decide to drive and look for Woody. And that's when they pass Slausen's Lost Oasis signs, which they call out immediately as a tourist trap, but seeing as they don't really have much choice,
it's a trap.
They drive right into the opening gates of Slausen's Lost Oasis. They find a little waterfall, and you think you're going to get some nudity, but nope. You get a tease, but no. Apparently the director, when the skinny dip scene came up,
he was too ashamed. He was too shy to ask him.
He was too shy to ask him to do it. And then
that's funny.
It's in the script, but nobody wanted to do it on the day.
Right.
Even though Tanya revealed much more later on in Sheena, Queen of the Jungle, and in Beastmaster, you don't get that here.
No.
But you do get the introduction of Chuck Connors as Mr. Slausen, who happens upon the girls skinny dipping, and it's all done in a very tasteful way, so you never do see anything. They're already in the water when Chuck comes upon them, with a rifle in his hand, as a direct reference to his role as the rifleman.
A rifleman.
Yeah. So he invites them back to Slausen's Lost Museum. He leaves with Jerry from the museum, leaves the 3 girls there among all the mannequins, and that's where the fun begins. He tells them not to go anywhere, not to go into the main house, because that's where Davey lives.
His brother.
There you go. One of the girls, of course, can't control herself. Out of curiosity, she does go down to the house and leaves the other 2 in the museum and runs into Davey, who is living amongst all these mannequins, very creepy mannequins that line the hallways. They're in every room, and they're in one room. Apparently, it's the mother and father of Mr. Slausen as mannequins in the living room. She hears them talking to each other until she opens the door, and then she realizes they're just mannequins. This is part of the strange power of this movie, is just the fact that you don't, as the film goes on and on, it makes less sense, but it's like a nightmare that you can't wake up out of. Nothing has to make sense in a nightmare, and that's what watching this movie is like watching somebody's nightmare. And by the end, you're so devolved into madness, it's hard to escape the allure of this movie.
I don't know if allure is the correct word, but I will say I know that the Pino Donaggio scored this, and he also had scored Carrie. He's pretty well renowned for that. But this soundtrack was like a bunch of 6th grade delinquents raided the band room and just decided to hit the high note of Psycho like over and over again. It was so grating. It was bad.
There's this very gentle theme that plays every time that Slausen talks about his dead wife. So I thought that was a nice little touch.
You've seen it more times than I have, so obviously I didn't pick up on it.
It's like a calliope kind of, like you said, like a children's kind of a theme. And so that's what makes it creepy as well, like the kids singing about 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. That thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we really not know that Davey is Chuck?
No, you
Mr.
do,
Slausen.
completely.
I mean, it's like, come on, dude. Yeah. But Davey gets credit in the opening.
Yes, he does. And
credits.
And listening to the director's commentary, that's because they were really trying to throw you off.
Because okay.
That it's actually
so he did. So he does play. I mean, he's channeling his inner Norman Bates here, really.
And
he's
he often,
playing his
as
brother.
Davey, he's wearing some kind of a mannequin's mask.
Like a jowl. He looked like Bruce from The Shark.
Yes, he
the
does.
jowls.
But that's kind of taken right from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you look at Leatherface and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's a skin face and with a wig, but it's very similar similar to what Davey looks like.
Yeah, Davey, I'll say his wig collection was pretty impressive.
Because as the thing goes on and Davey is stalking these kids, they do take pains to try to make it two characters. You've got Davey and you've got Mr. Slausen. How can he be doing these things if he's the same person? Because often the cuts will be like Davey capturing somebody, and then the next cut will be Mr. Slausen in the museum talking to Molly.
Right.
The next cut will be Davey with Jerry and Tanya Roberts in the basement, and then the cut after that is Mr. Slausen again. So it makes no sense, but it doesn't need to, because it's already got you on this visceral level.
And his motives were kind of ambiguous at first, because he started going on and he was mad about the new highway that bypassed his museum, and now no one ever came to go see it again. But I mean, come on, the Cars of Radiator Spring, they were mad about the new highway too. You didn't see Tow Mater try and kill and rape Lightning McQueen.
But as it goes on, you find out that he's got a hidden agenda, that he's harboring the secret that he's killed his wife and his brother because
they had an affair.
Yeah. So that's kind of driven him to madness. And you think, has he always had these telekinetic powers? Did the wife know about it? Did the brother know about it? Or did they develop after his madness? So who knows? You never got that tourist trap too, so they could never.
Don't encourage somebody.
Yeah, I don't think a movie like this could come out now. Just like the shoestring that it was made on. It was made by Compass International Pictures, which is the same company that to this day owns the right to the Halloween series.
I never heard of it.
Never heard of it, really?
No, never heard of it.
So again, looking at this as a kid, Davey himself was the stuff of nightmares, from his grumbling voices to all those masks that he had to the wigs, the menagerie of mannequins at his disposal that he could control, the stuff of nightmares for a kid. And again, watching this as an adult, even though I've seen it not hundreds of times, but tens of times, maybe 15 times or so in my lifetime, it still makes me uneasy.
It is a creepy ass freak show. It really is. And like I said, the music is horrific, but that definitely adds to the craziness of it all.
Right.
So what happened to Molly, though?
So Molly makes it to the end. Jerry does too, until all of a sudden you find out he's a mannequin. How does he have time to make these people into mannequins?
I know.
Jerry was a fully realized mannequin. All of a sudden he started taking his arms off and his head off, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
So Molly is not a ringer for his wife, but just reminds Slausen of his wife. Now, the character of Molly is like a...
Well, she's the virgin because she was blonde, wears white, and had pigtails.
And she had a big sun hat, too. And now...
Yeah.
So what happened to Molly?
So Molly is the virgin amongst two penthouse pets. Well, you wonder how these three girls are even friends. So that's why Slausen has designs on Molly. So he has it in his mind that he's going to marry her and that she's going to live there at the Oasis with him and be good to him. And Molly is aptly horrified. So at the end of the movie, everybody else is dead, turned into mannequins, what have you. Slausen brings Molly up to the attic to marry her with all of his mannequins in attendance.
Because that's where you go when you get married, the attic.
He says that was his brother's room, and maybe he wants it to be a cathartic ceremony.
Yeah, and he tried to kiss her. Oh, man, that was creepy.
He takes a death mask of the wife, puts it on Molly's face, and then tries to make out with her at one point during this.
It was... Ah.
So as this is going on, you hear the rattling of the door. Jerry has made a return to rescue Molly and get the other girls and get out of there. So he has an axe. He breaks down the door, much like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, right? He comes in. Slausen is just laughing it up, having a great time, and he's letting Jerry have his moment. And at that point, Molly, who's been the only one of the group to actually take a liking to Slausen before he went nuts, has lost it. Tells Jerry, kill him. So the good girl Molly has now completely turned and gone into insane territory.
There you go. Much like Grace in the first movie.
She's imploring Jerry to kill Slausen, and he's suddenly not moving with the axe in his hand. And she looks at him, and that's where the nightmare fully turns, because she sees that Jerry is under Slausen's spell. Whatever he can do to
Right.
Jerry is now in a trance. So Slausen, laughing maniacally, takes Jerry's arm, pulls it off of him, and it's a mannequin's arm.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Twists Jerry's head, pulls it off.
Takes his head off.
The mannequin's head, and he throws it to the ground, and it shatters, and he just knocks the mannequin's body over. And now Molly has descended into madness. All the mannequins start coming to life and approaching them both. And you see, a lot of them are the victims of previous victims of Slausen. It's real people mixed with mannequins, and it reminded me of that Night Stalker episode that we watched.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's the same deal. It's like mannequins and it's real people interspersed in these shots of mannequins coming at you. And there's one little troll type mannequin that's really horrifying. But as Slausen is preoccupied with his mannequins because he picks one up and he starts to dance with it and they're spinning around the attic, Molly slowly reaches for the axe that Jerry has brought up. And as the mannequins cry out to Slausen to watch out, all the mannequins' mouths open and one more horrific scene. They're all screaming at the same time. She buries the axe into Slausen's neck.
Nice.
And then Molly completely loses it and screams. And all the mannequins kind of drop to the ground because now that he's dead, he's got no power over them. So the very final scene of the movie is Molly driving the Jeep, and she's found all of her friends, and they're mannequins sitting beside her and behind her.
That's the most messed up scene in the whole. It's a freeze frame. It's just a freeze frame of her driving away in the Jeep with her 5 friends, like all sticking out like they're luggage.
She's laughing. So it's like she's completely driven insane at the end of the movie, even though that she's survived. So the end scene, and that's the movie. So it is just an endurance test. You just take a breath at the end of the movie and you just kind of ruminate because the movie sucks you in. You're in the environment of this movie. It's one of those few that totally engrosses you, I think. Now, I'm maybe just talking for myself.
I think the way it's shot, too, it's very claustrophobic the way it's shot. It's a lot of really tight, in that museum, I mean, you're completely surrounded by these mannequins. So, yeah, that adds to the phobia of and it's dark. So, yeah.
And watching this as an adult, it does bring one thing that I didn't catch when I was a kid. There is a total lack of sense, as we mentioned before, but there's also, even more importantly, a total lack of brassieres in this movie.
It was the 70s.
As Mike said, Tanya is very engrossing when she's on screen, but I do not see how that tube top survived. No way. No way that could still be on her during what she's...
Any way we can bring back the tube top.
And we didn't even mention the most horrific scene in this is the suffocation scene.
With
the girl on the table.
Plaster.
Yeah.
With the plaster on her face.
I don't know what kind of plaster he was using, though, but that was...
No, it's revealed in the commentary that it's dough. So that's why it's sticking to his fingers. All it was flour and water, and all she had to do was just blow out of her mouth if she got into trouble. But
it is very unsettling.
Yeah, the director revealed that this was based on his student thesis film, a very truncated version of this, which mannequins come alive. There's a blind man that surrounds himself with mannequins, and they're his only friends. So to him, they are real, and that's basically what his student thesis was. So when he was making that, he made a couple of casts of his own face, so he knew how the plaster felt. So that whole monologue that Davey gives that poor helpless girl table about how the plaster gets hot is actually true because he felt that himself. So he wrote that monologue for Davey. But it's a horrific scene.
Method acting there.
And it's a crescendo of music and the heartbeat sound until it finally happens and her heart bursts and the music stops. And Jerry ineffectively at that moment breaks free of his bonds, and this poor guy, he is just demasculated throughout this movie. And the one scene where he jumps through the window when Slausen finds him in the living room of his house, he might as well have left an outline of his body through the door. He just leaves Tanya Roberts, that's his character's wife.
Yoinks, I'm out of here.
Leaves her there, I'm out of here. And it just runs into the woods. And I think that's probably why he comes back to save Molly, to save face. Poor Jerry put upon during this
Jerry,
entire film.
Some assembly required.
And this kind of plays out like a Scooby-Doo episode gone horribly wrong.
Right, like I just said.
Because really,
it's old man Slausen.
It's kind of, it's old man Slausen, but Slausen is the one that wins, not those meddling kids. Yeah, at the end, you've got a Fred mannequin, you've got a Velma mannequin, and a Daphne mannequin, and you've got Scoob driving away.
Scrappy too. Let me have at him. Bring it, Scooby Dum. Dum 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 dum.
So Jen, I hope you're happy that we.
Jen, I'm not happy. Jen, proud of yourself.
So I've talked enough. So thoughts of this movie from you two?
You've said it all. I don't know what to say. I will tell you this. There was one copy available at my library, and I just got a notification that it's due tomorrow, and they said keep it. They said don't even return it. You're the first person that's rented it in the last 20 years. No, I don't know. This whole week has not been in my wheelhouse. This one was disturbing.
I liked it better than I thought I was going to. So
Okay.
I'll
There
give
you
it
go.
Ben and Jim on this one.
Now, can either of you imagine watching this as a 10-year-old kid?
No, I think this is
I wouldn't.
horrific. I can't believe my wife watched it with me. She hates these movies.
Did she enjoy it, or?
I don't know if enjoy would be part of the descriptive.
So just some background. This was released in March of '79. John Carpenter was set to direct this originally.
Ooh.
Again, same production company as Halloween, but he couldn't come to financial terms with Compass International.
In other words, he wanted to get paid.
Yep. So the directing duties went to the writer, David Schmoller, and he did a good job. $800,000 budget.
That's
$50,000 of which went to Chuck Connors. Now, he was trying to actually sell himself as a Boris Karloff, Christopher Lee of the 80s. And Tourist Trap was supposed to be his jumping off point.
I say he looked like he had fun doing this.
Yeah.
I will give him credit for that, even though, I wrote in my notes, Chuck, you're better than this.
But
if this was like where he wanted to go.
As Davey, with all that mumbling dialogue, especially that scene where Molly's terrified with a gun in her hand because Mr. Slausen has picked her up and he's going to put on the radio, and all of a sudden Davey appears.
Right. Yeah, that was
terrifying as Davey. He's convincing.
Yeah. Yeah. He even changed like the way he walks, because I think Slausen walked with a
Slausen
limp.
had a limp, and then Davey,
Right.
that was another effort for them to keep a distance between
Differentiate.
Slausen and Davey character. But again, can you imagine Jack Palance in that role?
No, because that's like, he would have been even more
He
terrifying.
would have. And he would have had to have said, believe it or not.
No, but believe it or not.
And they used a real house as the interior on Hollywood Boulevard. I don't think it was the same house that you see in the exterior shots.
I was going to say the exterior is like in the middle of nowhere.
See that house would be on, I would never be able to live in that house seeing this movie. That would be on a level of the Amityville horror for me.
Like, yeah, I'll pass.
And the one scene where Tanya Roberts first goes in the house, this is worth noting, that she finds a mannequin in bed with its knees up with a sheet covering it. And the director says that that's supposed to be Slausen's wife, that he does unspeakable things to, which I would have never picked up on unless I watched that commentary. It just makes it even more disturbing.
Hello, honey.
So here we get into the nitty gritty. This movie got a PG rating, which the director could not believe it got a PG rating. They were not aiming for that. But because of that, it hurt it financially in the movie theater, because who's going to want to go to watch a PG-rated horror movie, right? So they didn't get kids and they didn't get horror fans. But that's also a reason why it turned up in TV syndication, is because it had a PG rating. Without the profanity, it pretty much survived uncut in its WOR-TV incarnation, which is how I saw it so many times. Tourist Trap.
There it is. You can't unsee it.
Can't
you can't
unsee
unhear this. You can't unhear this episode either.
So how many buckets are we thinking for Tourist Trap?
I'm going 2.5.
2.5.
I'm going solid 3 3/4. I think. 4 with this movie, just because I think
I was going to say you have a history with it, so
it sets out what it wants to do. It really sticks with you, bad or good. I think that that's its intent, and it delivers. Tourist Trap. So that leads us to our
Confessionals
this week. Now, what was our confessional? How would you like to die, or how long you last in a horror?
I think you could probably tie those two together.
Okay. All right. Let's do that then.
All right.
So, okay. Say if the three of us were in Tourist Trap, the three of us are in that Jeep, right? And we are looking for maybe Dave. He's the Woody character that has gone off and he's tried to fix the tire. And we are the three that end up in Slausen's Lost Oasis. Who would be the Molly that survives? Who would Slausen most want to marry off?
Listen, if it keeps me alive, I'll be his bitch. He did.
I just wanted to skinny dip.
Even seeing the signs for Slausen's Lost Oasis would be, I'm out of the Jeep and I'm hitchhiking. I'm not going.
Oh, yeah, no. There's no way. You know how I die in one of these movies? Of old age, because I would run away.
Yeah.
But if I was confronted, I'd be the first to be killed.
Now, how do you think we would want to be killed, though? That's your question.
I said, old age.
Old age. Okay.
You can always make new friends, right?
Yes, it's true. Now, I think I'd probably want to go the Jerry route if I was to choose a death.
Just get dismantled.
I think death by dismantlement is probably preferable.
No, I'd take the hatchet in the back of the head.
Or what about choked out by an ascot? How about that?
No.
No.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even mention the ascot. It was the 70s.
Yeah, but like Jeff, I think really my most preferred way of death would be at 80 years old.
Talking about it. I remember there was one time I lost 4 friends. Sucks to see them go, but
I wasn't going to give that Slausen a dime of my money.
damn you, Slausen.
His mannequins were not worth a dime.
At one point, he even says, I got a legal right to that, to like kill
He
people.
does. That's all Chuck Connors wanted, was to be the new Christopher Lee.
Yuck.
Yeah.
So next week, much to your chagrin, I'm sure, the both of you, we're revisiting the horror genre, and we're watching It Part 2. Pennywise is going to guest star on TMI next week.
Is
And
it called It Part 2?
I think that's what it's called.
It Part
So
2.
clever.
Yeah.
I know, right? They really went all out on that one.
In a way, our classic feature is another listener request. My cousin Lauren has long tried to get us to review Killer Clowns from Outer Space, going as far as sending me the Blu-ray as a gift.
That is a gift that keeps on giving, though, because when you guys watch this, it's going to blow Tourist Trap away.
It Part 2, coupled with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, next week here on TMI.
Woohoo!
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, bye.
We're out.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
So what happened to Molly? So what happened to Molly? So what happened to Molly?
Some people call it a Kaiser blade. I call it a sling blade.